"We've agreed. You're no longer part of the family." The text from my mother flashed on my screen without a single warning. I stared at it, waiting for the 3 dots that meant she was typing a correction, but they never came. Instead, seconds later, a new notification appeared. Celeste liked the message. My sister actually hearted my disownment. There was no explanation, just erasure. I looked up at the empty hospital break room and realized the truth. I was an orphan with living parents. I swallowed the lump in my throat and opened my laptop. My hands were steady. In the trauma bay, when a patient crashes, you don't panic. You don't ask why they're bleeding out. You just stop the bleeding. I logged into the family cloud account, the one that held every photo, every contact, every digital memory they had. The one I'd been paying for since I was 22, because Harold said he didn't trust the internet with his credit card. First, I went to the security settings. I deleted Harold's recovery email and replaced it with a burner address I'd created years ago for spam. Then I changed the password. It was a small, silent click, but it felt like slamming a heavy door. Just like that, they were locked out of their own digital history. Next came the insurance portal. I pulled up the supplemental health policy that covered Harold's prescriptions and Nadine's endless dermatology visits. The premium was $300 a month, automatically deducted from my account. I didn't just cancel it, that would trigger a notification. Instead, I went to the payment methods. I deleted my card and left the field blank. Then I checked the box for paperless billing. The confirmation screen flashed green. Changes saved. They wouldn't know. They wouldn't get a letter. They wouldn't get a warning. They'd find out in 6 weeks when Harold tried to refill his blood pressure medication and the pharmacist told him his coverage had been terminated for non-payment. It was a ticking bomb buried under layers of administrative silence. I sat back. The plastic chair dug into my spine. I should have felt guilty. That's what they trained me to feel. For years, I was the safety net they walked across without looking down, the one who made sure the bills were paid and the lights stayed on while they played pretend at being successful. But staring at that empty payment field, I didn't feel guilt. I felt lighter. In the trauma bay, you don't fight a hemorrhage with tears. You apply a tourniquet and wait for the limb to go numb. I closed the laptop and picked up my phone. I didn't send a goodbye text. I didn't defend myself. I just went to my contacts, found Mom, Dad, and Celeste, and hit block caller. The break room door opened. Dr. Milton stuck his head in. "Rachel, we've got a 6-car pileup headed in, 5 minutes out." I stood up, smoothed my scrubs, and clipped my badge back onto my chest. "I'm ready," I said. And for the first time in my life, I actually was. The next morning, I didn't wake up to an apology. I woke up to a war. My phone was lit up with notifications, 9 missed calls from Nadine, 6 voicemails from Harold, and 1 text from Celeste that simply read, "You're ruining everything." I sat on the edge of the bed and played the first voicemail. "You ungrateful brat." Harold's voice snarled through the speaker. "You think you can just cut us off after everything we've done for you? Fix this immediately or I'm calling a lawyer. You hear me? I will ruin you." I deleted it. They talked about everything they'd done for me like it was a list of noble sacrifices, but I had my own list, a ledger of invisible labor I'd carried in my head for years. 3 years ago, Harold called me in a panic. He was short on cash. The bank was threatening foreclosure on Brookmarsh, the family estate that had been in Nadine's family for 3 generations. He begged me for help, promised it was a one-time thing. I drained my savings, took 6 months of back-to-back overtime shifts, working double weekends until my feet blistered and my eyes blurred. I wired them $42,000 to save that house. Did they thank me? No. Nadine told the neighbors Harold had made some brilliant portfolio moves to weather a financial hiccup. I was erased from the story before the check even cleared. Then there was Celeste. When she decided she wanted to be a lifestyle influencer, she needed a camera, lighting gear, and a full custom website. Who paid for it? Me. $18,000 over 2 years, disguised as loans that were never repaid. But the worst entry in the ledger wasn't financial. It was the lie they forced me to live. When I was 18, they sat me down at the kitchen table. Harold looked at me with flat, heavy eyes and said, "You're not college material, Rachel. You're just average. We don't want you embarrassing us by failing out." They told me to leave, but they didn't just kick me out. They handed me a script. "Tell the neighbors you're taking a gap year to find yourself," Nadine said, smoothing her blouse. "Tell them you want to travel. Don't tell them we asked you to go. We have a reputation to maintain." So I did. I lied for them. I protected their image while I crashed on a friend's couch and worked 2 jobs to put myself through nursing school. I let them paint me as the impulsive, ungrateful daughter who walked away from her loving family, while they played the victims. I walked into my kitchen and poured a cup of coffee. The steam curled into the stillness of my apartment. For 10 years, I'd been their safety net, their bank, their image consultant. I wasn't just a daughter, I was their biggest creditor, and now the debt was due. I sat at my kitchen counter staring at the cold coffee in my mug. The sun was up, but the world felt different, sharper. My phone rang. It was Nadine. "Where are you?" Her voice was shrill, so loud I pulled the phone away from my ear. "I can't get into the cloud. All my photos are gone. Did you do something?" I didn't answer. I just listened to her panic. It wasn't the panic of a mother worried about her child. It was the panic of someone realizing the locks had been changed. "And the insurance," she continued, her voice rising an octave. "I called the pharmacy about your father's prescription, and they said the policy is inactive. Rachel, fix this right now." I hung up. 5 minutes later, a voicemail appeared. I played it on speaker. Harold's voice was low, controlled, the kind of voice he used when he wanted to remind me who was in charge. "Rachel, I don't know what game you're playing, but you need to stop. If those accounts aren't restored by noon, I'm filing a report with the nursing board. I'll tell them you're stealing narcotics. I'll tell them you're unstable. You'll lose your license. You'll lose everything." The message ended with a click. I sat there, the silence loud in my ears. He wasn't just threatening me. He was threatening my livelihood, my career, the one thing I built entirely on my own. In the trauma bay, we call this escalation. When a patient goes from yelling to throwing punches, you stop negotiating. You call security. But I didn't call security. I called my lawyer, or rather, Granddad Walter's lawyer. Mr. Barrett answered on the second ring. "Rachel," his voice was slow and serious, "I was just about to call you. Your grandfather passed away early this morning." I closed my eyes. Grief hit me like a rip current, heavy, dragging. Walter was the only one who had ever seen me, the only one who ever acted like I mattered, and now he was gone.
"The funeral will be private," Mr. Barrett continued, "per his instructions. But the will reading is scheduled for tomorrow at 10 a.m. at Brookmarsh. Your parents and sister have been notified." "I'll be there," I said. "Rachel," he added, his tone shifting, softening, "be prepared." I spent the rest of the day preparing, not for the grief, but for the performance. I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, let my shoulders round forward, practiced looking down, away. I made my hands shake, just a little. I pulled an old gray sweater from the closet, 2 sizes too big, frayed at the cuffs. I slipped it on. In the mirror, I didn't look like an ER nurse. I looked like a frightened child. "In the trauma bay," I whispered to my reflection, "you don't fight a drunk patient. You let them swing until they wear themselves out." Harold and Nadine didn't want to face a woman. They wanted the scared, indecisive girl they could corner. Fine, I'd give them the performance of a lifetime. The library at Brookmarsh smelled like leather polish and quiet arrogance. It was a room designed to shrink you, floor-to-ceiling shelves, velvet drapes so thick they choked the sunlight, and a mahogany desk massive enough to seat judgment. I sank into a corner armchair, pulling the sleeves of my gray sweater down over my hands. Harold and Nadine sat opposite the desk, their backs straight as rulers. They were dressed in designer morning black, immaculate, expensive, and utterly hollow. Celeste was scrolling on her phone, her heels tapping out a sharp, impatient beat on the hardwood. When I walked in, Nadine glanced over, her lip curling. "Oh, Rachel, you made it. There's coffee in the kitchen if you want to make yourself useful." I didn't move, just stared at the floor and mumbled, "I'm okay, thanks." Mr. Barrett entered. He didn't acknowledge my parents, just took his seat behind the desk, opened a thick folder, and adjusted his glasses. "Thank you all for coming," he said, his voice dry, uninterested in sympathy. Walter left very specific instructions regarding the distribution of his estate. Harold leaned forward, the leather creaking beneath him. "We just want to get this over with. It's been a very difficult week." "I'm sure," Barrett replied. Then he began to read. The list of assets was breathtaking. The Brookmarsh estate, appraised at $1.3 million, a diversified stock portfolio worth $2 million, liquid cash reserves totaling $670,000, $3.97 million in total. The air in the room changed. It turned electric. I watched Celeste stop tapping her foot, watched Nadine's fingers tighten on Harold's sleeve. They weren't grieving, they were calculating. "The entire estate," Barrett continued, glancing above his glasses, "is bequeathed to her granddaughter, Rachel." Silence, dense and suffocating. Then came the explosion. "That's not right," Harold snapped, his voice low and hard. "My father was senile. He didn't know what he was doing." "He was fully lucid," Barrett said, calmly. "Rachel," Nadine laughed, a brittle, artificial sound. She turned to me, eyes wide with pity so fake it glittered. "Rachel can't manage a bank account, let alone an estate. She's fragile. Just look at her." She gestured at my sweater, my posture, my downcast gaze. I let my eyes well up, let my chin tremble. I played the role perfectly. While they judged me, I studied them. In the ER, you learn to spot fake wealth. Harold's Rolex ticked. It was a knockoff. Nadine's car keys didn't belong to her Lexus, but had a rental tag. They weren't just greedy, they were broke. The threats, the pressure, it was all desperation in silk. I played meek when Harold demanded guardianship of the estate. I said I was scared of taxes, panicked about legal trouble. I watched sweat bead on his brow. He needed cash before 5. Nadine offered to help, suggesting a trust, a stipend. I asked about probate. Barrett explained an emergency shortcut. If my family declared me unfit, they could gain immediate control, but only by signing a waiver. Harold didn't flinch. He saw salvation, not risk. Nadine and Celeste signed too. Then I straightened. Barrett calmly read the will's competence clause. Anyone who contested the heir forfeited their inheritance. Harold lost his $150,000 bequest instantly. His face collapsed. That money was already promised to someone. "This is a setup. You tricked us." I met his stare. "It wasn't a trick. It was a test. You failed." With 12 minutes left before foreclosure, he begged. I called the police instead. They left in silence. Weeks later, the bank took the house, the cars, the club memberships, the illusion. I capped Brookmarsh. On my first night alone in the house, I found a photo of myself, tucked behind a vase. I looked so small in it, so hopeful. I threw it away. Not for revenge, for her. The girl who thought she wasn't enough. If you're still waiting for people like that to change, stop. Don't hand them the keys to your life. Change the locks instead. This channel wasn't made for everyone. It was made just for you. Subscribe to this channel to get more stories like this every day.